Coming up on Tech News Today, what's coming up? Yeah. Coming up on Tech News Today, LinkedIn goes IPO and closes high, but will that price slip and slide? Apple's cloud service is getting closer, but they also have malware and may not want to help you fix it. Facial recognition is scary, anyway, and Kindle books. Kind of a big deal. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, May 19th, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by Slingbox, which just turned your iPad into a television. Slingbox introduces their new iPad app so you can now watch your home TV on your iPad anywhere you take it. Check it out at Best Buy or slingbox.com/twit. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz, Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
This is the show where we kick the tech news
Boom,
right
boom,
in the
take
smacker and say, get out of here.
Well, first we explain it.
First we
Stick around long enough for us to talk about you, and then
Then we'll
and
kick
then
you.
get out of here. When we're done with you, you won't know what. Nah, we just kind of talk about tech news. We try to make sense of all of these stories that we all read every day. What's important, what's wrong, what's right. And joining us today is Randall Bennett, who's been on the show before. Randall, so nice to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Good to be back. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. I know that you've got a new project that you're working on called VidPresso. Excited to hear about that a little bit later in the show. And
Awesome.
you also described yourself as a jack of all trades. So as far as tech goes, that's the right way to be.
Exactly.
So let's just get into this little story. There's this company, you may or may not have heard of it. It's called LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I use it. You've probably never heard of it. It's very indie. Well, they went IPO today, and there was a slight bit of buzz. I'm kidding, of course. The LinkedIn IPO was easily the biggest story of the day, and they opened to great fanfare.
That's right. LinkedIn, they originally wanted to price their IPO at $45 a share. It jumped up as high as $122.70, and it closed at $94.25, which means its market capitalization is $8.9 billion after 1 day of trading on the market. LinkedIn made $350 million in gross proceeds for itself because obviously they sold it at that low price. And then all day, I'm sure a bunch of people were trying to make money just within the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about that, that's pretty crazy. If you put money in when the market opened, you double your return in 1 day. I think the problem with that LinkedIn is really the first big consumer-ish .com stock since the bubble burst. We've had Google, we've had Netflix, OpenTable, a handful of others, but I think a lot of people were looking to LinkedIn and saying, okay, this is the first social networking IPO. What's that mean for Facebook? What does that mean for other companies? And I think that this honestly sets sort of a cautionary precedent. I think a lot of people, even before LinkedIn was out, people were saying, oh, $45 a share, it's a bubble. That was only about 10x earnings, which means it's pretty normal. Like that means it's in a pretty normal range. Mm-hmm. Now, we've set a whole new world of expectations. I would not be surprised if in the next week or two, like things level off a little bit, cooler heads prevail. And I kind of hope so that, when Facebook goes for an IPO, it's not bubble, mania all over
$100
again.
billion value
Exactly.
company.
Well, no, I
Right?
mean, if this is at 8.9, then we figured out that Facebook must be something about 720 quadrillion, right? Because if LinkedIn, which only has like 100 million users, and they claim they get about 1 million users a week, so that's a lot of people. Facebook has 640 million people.
Right.
Like, everybody uses it. To a lot of people, when Facebook is not accessible, the internet is down to them. They're like, this is not working.
But, okay, so here's talking about everyone's using this word bubble. We're in a bubble. Look at LinkedIn. It's like, there are a variety of reasons. There aren't that many big tech company IPOs these days. So, or at least we're getting back into some sort of a phase.
Exactly.
LinkedIn has been around for a while. I mean, we probably all have accounts. Like Iyaz said, they've got about 100 million users, but they do claim to be adding around 1 million new members every week. That's good growth, 1 million people a week. And it kind of, in a way, I think about it, I've had my resume exclusively on LinkedIn for years now. I don't even have a resume anywhere else. That's kind of what I use it for. Anytime I change jobs or add a position or, some sort of a a title change, I'll go in and make sure LinkedIn is updated. And that's kind of how I can browse other people's work experience and what they're doing now, type of a thing. But I mean, I'm not using it on a daily basis.
No. The thing to keep in mind, though, with an IPO, this is a positive thing for one specific reason. They have real revenues. If they didn't have real revenues, this would be bubble 2.0. LinkedIn's been around for 10 years. This is, or approximately 10 years. They started back in, I think it was 2001 or 2002, around the same time as like Plaxo and those Friendster and those other sort of first wave of social networks. And so the fact that they've waited so long to go public, I mean, Facebook's in a similar boat. Facebook could have gone public years ago. I think this sort of speaks to the idea that, real businesses are emerging. IPOs might, make the general public aware that, technology is back. I kind of think this is a good thing for anyone in the startup community, especially, but for technology in general, I think this will attract a lot of people to, try new things. They think that there's a shot that they could be a gigantic company one day. Maybe they'll try some new things. So I think in general, for like a regular everyday person who maybe uses LinkedIn when they lose their job or, to do some research on another company, the real thing here is, there's a world outside of LinkedIn that this speaks to.
Yeah, that, and just because we don't use LinkedIn on a day-to-day basis doesn't mean that companies aren't. Half of their revenue comes from companies looking to hire, and that information to these companies is worth a lot of money. The other 30% comes from advertising revenue, and only 20% comes from premium services for people like us. So they still offer free stuff, but it's the companies who are really making up 50% of their revenues. That's probably why they're really.
That's actually probably why, I mean, they've got a strong ad model, because they're not looking for people like us to start ponying up money necessarily. I mean, that's not where the bulk of their revenues are coming from anyway.
And on top of that,
products. Sorry, Iyaz, go ahead.
On top of that, they're really targeted, right? It's all about business. It's not like Facebook where you have a bunch of groups that are all kind of fractured. You could be talking about ketchup on one page, or you can talk about TWiT on another. In LinkedIn, you know exactly what you're getting, so they can be really targeted in a way that no other site can be.
The products for individual users, I figure, are kind of lame right now. I mean, really, do I really want to pay someone to send email? That's essentially what their premium subscription offering is. They have one where you can pay to send an in-mail.
Right.
You can pay to find...
I've never understood that either.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those are sort of the early business models. And as they've realized, as they hit this sort of critical mass where they have, 1 million new users a week, companies are realizing that they can get, they can target people and create, one of the products that they're offering to these companies is a way to create a job that doesn't exist, basically a dream job for someone, and say, hey, do you want this job? And if they say yes, then they sort of facilitate that transaction. But if they don't, the company pays LinkedIn money, and, people who use LinkedIn are none the wiser. So I think like having that focus on businesses is where they've seen the most growth. And I don't expect like them to start charging regular consumers anytime.
That said, I mean,
at least good products.
Closing at $94 a share.
Oh.
I mean,
It's pretty good.
I'm worried.
what's it going to be like? It's like, talk to me in 30 days, right?
Right,
Yeah,
aftermarket
exactly.
Aftermarket, they've lost like 1% or 2%. So tomorrow might open a little less, but nothing major has happened yet.
Yeah, a month will know. This is a good sign for the health of technology. But like you say, Sarah, you're totally right that in a month we'll really know what this actually means.
Right, and it will definitely set a precedent for companies who are already planning to go IPO, or maybe just kind of seeing how the market's going to shake out. All right, moving on to Apple. Apple, we've talked a lot about, will they or won't they launch cloud services? Maybe at WWDC. What's going on behind the scenes? Well, it sounds like they have been in negotiations with the big labels in order to get licensing agreements. And they just signed EMI, which is one of the big guys, isn't it?
Right. CNET was reporting that EMI is signed with Apple for cloud service and cloud music streaming. On top of that, they've already reported that Warner Music Group is already a part of this, which means there's 2 more companies left, Sony and Universal. And apparently Apple's very active in negotiations with them as well, which is crazy because if you look at Amazon and Google, they went ahead and launched their cloud locker services. And now Apple's got their wacky idea of trying to work with the music industry and have streaming rights that these other guys haven't. So they haven't just looked at Apple hasn't used the example of Amazon and Google and said, the heck with you guys. They've decided to work with these companies, and this could really set them apart.
There's a big peg here that I think that might not be immediately apparent. iTunes, they have had to have these relationships with the music industry before. Amazon has the MP3 store, but Amazon MP3 store just isn't that big of a market for the labels, and it isn't that big of a market for Amazon itself. Apple, iTunes is still big, and Apple had a lot to lose if they just went out, that the label has just said, okay, next time the license comes up for renewal, no, thank you. I mean, that would be huge and kind of crazy. So Apple, I think, more or less had to negotiate this licensing right, which, I'm not even of the opinion that you need to have a license to stream music which you've already purchased. Like, I just, that sounds insane to me. But regardless, they definitely had to do this for a business reason.
And from a technical standpoint, they don't have to necessarily keep separate copies for every user, which theoretically would allow them to do this. Like that's what Amazon's trying to do, and that's what Google's trying to do. And this Apple service is supposed to differ because it has a scan and match. So you're not necessarily uploading everything. I know, Jason, you were trying to upload all your Google Music, and that could take a long time.
It's still going, and I've been uploading. But mind you, I don't blame Google servers, by the way, or the service at all. I totally blame my horrible internet upload speeds.
Right,
I mean, it's really bad, but it's a huge library. They allow you to upload up to 20,000 songs.
But you do have to upload.
Yeah, you do have to upload it. They aren't syncing, based on file name or anything like that. It all has to be transferred over.
That and ISPs usually scream, "Here's our download number," but they sometimes don't show you that their upload's like 768 max. Kilobytes per second.
The idea would be that Apple would have the ability to scan, the first part of a song and say, well, oh yeah, we've got this song, and then you could go ahead and start streaming it.
Potentially, or if you're a big iTunes user, just say, all right, these are all the songs that you've bought through iTunes over the years. You don't need to, that's all you need. We'll let you stream these from here going forward.
For people who are looking for this right now, I use a service called Rdio, and Rdio has a desktop client which already scans your iTunes library for just the artist and track name, and then it'll just add those to your collection on Rdio. Now, granted, Rdio is $5 a month, but honestly, I don't even find these locker services that appealing. I mean, the most interesting part of this is that patent that Sarah briefly mentioned, where they might have each of the first 10 seconds of each song already stored on your device, and then start streaming as soon as after that plays. That to me is like an interesting technical feat, but I don't want to store music. I just want to pay $5 a month and listen to every song ever. You know?
To be clear, patently, Apple actually found an Apple patent that explained how how Apple might do their streaming service, whereby you would have on your device the initial part of each song or media file, and then you would fill in the rest by streaming. So you'd never have this weird buffering issue when you'd skip from song to song. So these two things, if Apple actually has the music industry on its side, and they don't have any weird buffering issues, that's going to set them apart from their competitors right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the best cloud service, but I still think cloud services these cloud locker things. I think they're kind of lame. I don't know.
Well, but then you also admit to being a big Rdio fan, so you're kind of like me, where I'm happy with streaming services. There's a lot less emphasis in my life on actually buying music and then being able to access it in a variety of places. I'd kind of rather pay a monthly fee to stream, but it all depends on what people.
I guess if you have a huge library, that's going to appeal to you. Mm-hmm. But then you have kind of Jason's problem where you're like, well, I guess I can listen to it in 5 years when it's done uploading.
Yeah, I'm assuming next week sometime my entire library is going to be there, so it'll be about 2.5 weeks to upload everything. The good thing though there is, once that's done, it's done. It's all synced up there, so I don't really care going forward. My music's accessible.
Well, in any case, obviously, Apple's acquisition of Lala makes more sense than ever. Lala, as we've kind of speculated, gosh, were they just sort of flying under the radar the whole time because they were doing this exact thing? Apple said, let's just scoop you up, shut you down, get some agreements going, and they're about ready to launch again. I'd love for this to be the big announcement at WWDC. That remains to be seen, but it sounds like, in any case, they're getting really close.
I think I already know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyways. You think their streaming cloud service, if and when it ever comes about, will work with things other than iPhones and iPods?
That's true. As long as it's a MacBook.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
iPod Touch.
Or an iPad. Probably work
These
with.
Devices.
Yeah.
What other devices would you need?
Yeah, that's
exactly.
true. That's a stupid question.
I don't. Yeah. Some sort of old book.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to AT&T possibly overcharging people like me, iPhone and iPad data users, and overcharging quite a bit, allegedly up to 300% in some cases.
Right, there's a class action lawsuit against AT&T, and it claims that AT&T routinely overcharges for data used by iPhone users and iPad users, and this is on their 3G connection, obviously. Now, the headlines are screaming 300%. They could be inaccurate. The normal things is usually around 7 to 14% of an overcharge. MSNBC is reporting that, get this, the lawyers are the good guys, and they claim they did research for months and spent $80,000 trying to find out, well, if this was true. And it turns out they have a class action lawsuit. The weird thing, though, is that a while ago in April, the Supreme Court already ruled for AT&T in the case that class action lawsuits, if it's in their contract, they wouldn't be allowed. You'd have to do this via arbitration. So I'm not really sure how this class action lawsuit will continue, but that's the case right now. And AT&T, they haven't said anything yet if they are like looking into this or what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I hear class action lawsuit, my kind of like, I get this feeling of like patent trolls, and I think of these people who are lawyers who are trying to like make money from the system. And it's not that I think AT&T is not, at fault, but when they say they spent $80,000 doing research, does that mean they spent $80,000 paying themselves to do research? I mean, like,
yeah, really. I mean, this isn't someone, the four of us get together and start saying, let's start analyzing our data usage. Let's throw about $80K into analyzing our data usage and see if we're getting screwed.
Yeah,
I mean,
let's
this
start
isn't
with
like
some sandwiches.
These aren't average
And,
AT&T customers.
sandwiches.
These are people with
where
an
you start.
agenda. One
exactly. And I think that is, if you keep that in perspective, like, of course, AT&T could, theoretically be charging, and then a class action lawsuit or arbitration could actually, be the little guy's friend. But I have like, in this kind of age of litigation with, lawyers kind of acting in their own self-interest more than, but like chest bumping, like, oh no, I'm doing this for the common man. I'm doing this for the everyday inventor. Like, I just have an instant feeling of like, are you sure? Like, prove to me that AT&T is sketchy. Give me data. Show me rather than promising me that it's 300%. I don't know.
Actually, there is an update. AT&T released a statement saying accurate billing is clearly important, and unfortunately, there have been some incorrect claims about our data usage billing practices. We properly bill for all data that our customers send and receive, including data activity. And it just kind of goes on saying.
So they're saying there may be discrepancies. We obviously didn't mean to,
Right.
and we'll look into it type of thing.
So there's
That's I love the sensational people being overcharged 300%. I mean, 300%. It's like, of course you would notice that. 7%. I mean, how do you even gauge?
Yeah,
and how do you say like, what is legitimate usage? What is not legitimate usage? How do you how did their $80,000 go to figuring out, like, were they connected to some like AT&T microsite and they were like, checking the data as it went through? I mean, how do you actually like know what's legitimate and what's not?
They claimed that they had like turned off all data services effectively, and they were seeing charges. So that was the weird thing. Like if you're turning off they didn't say they turned off the phones, but they turned off some services, which means that the phones are transmitting data back and forth, even if you're not aware that it's doing it.
Yeah, I mean, but that's, I think, I don't know how AT&T is billing for that. But, text messages were originally invented in just the traffic between a cell phone and the tower. So like basically the cell phone would say like, where are you at tower? And during that interchange, you could exchange a text message. That's why they had to be so small. So, I mean, like, cell phones have to talk to the towers, obviously. I wonder, I just have too many questions, I guess, that really none of us can answer, like, to really legitimize these claims.
Well, hopefully AT&T, I mean, obviously they've just now, during our show, put out some sort of a initial statement, and hopefully they can shed a little bit more light, at least on their end, of what happened, if it indeed was intentional. I'm sure they won't ever say it was intentional if it was, but get a little bit of an idea of what exactly is going on here and who is at fault. We have a lot more to discuss, including malware on Apple. I didn't even think it was possible. Just kidding. But first, let's thank Slingbox for sponsoring this episode of TNT. Slingbox is great. If you're not familiar with them, it is the way to watch your favorite shows. Anything that you would watch in your living room or your bedroom or anywhere that you've got your nice home theater setup with you on the go, on your Mac, on your PC, on your iPad, for example. Yeah, Slingbox has an iPad app. It is slick. Leo loves it. Oh man, he takes it everywhere. He's always talking about taking his iPad app to a Giants game because he wants to watch instant replays that you can't get when you're in the theater. Let's say that you do a lot of traveling and you like your shows. You want to watch your DVR'd shows on your own time. Slingbox works with anything that you can watch, whether it's live TV through your cable network or any of your DVR'd shows. I mean, it is amazing. It's like packing up your living room and taking it with you on the go. You can watch your home TV on your iPad or on a computer, anywhere that you can get an internet connection, you can access your Slingbox. If you want to know more, you can find Slingbox or see a demo at Best Buy, or check it out. They've got a lot of nice instructional videos and good information at slingbox.com. Slingbox and your home TV now appearing on iPads everywhere. It's good stuff. All right, Iyaz. Malware on my Mac. I didn't think that happened.
That's what a lot of people think. And then,
No, it's impossible.
Because it's a Mac.
It's
right?
actually impossible.
That's why I have a Mac, because I don't like things like malware and
Joking.
viruses.
People are going to take you seriously.
I know. Joking.
All right,
joking.
All joking aside, what's going on here?
Yeah, malware can be on Macs, and we've talked about the Mac Defender scare, where pretty much you'll see something pop up on your browser saying your Mac's infected, and download this piece of software called Mac Defender. Give it, you have to install it and everything. You still have to do a lot of things to make it run on your system, but it turns out that Apple's internal AppleCare docs talking about Mac Defender say that they pretty much don't want you to remove the malware. Or they say do not attempt to remove the malware. They have 4 important points for the customer care representatives to say. Do not confirm or deny that such software has been installed. Do not attempt to remove or uninstall any malware software. Do not send any escalations or contact Tier 2 for support about removing the software or provide impact data. Do not refer customers to the Apple retail store. The ARS does not provide any additional support for malware. So Apple doesn't have a unit in place to deal with malware because, well, really, it wasn't that big a problem for a while.
Sure.
It's been a larger scaling of this problem in the past couple of, months, actually.
Randall, do you see this as Apple just not really knowing what steps to take when customer service issues come in about this sort of thing?
That seems out of character for them. I mean, they've seen, of course, they advertised against the fact that Windows PCs got malwares for years. And as their market share is going up, they're going to be more attractive for malware purveyors. So I think they've probably been thinking about this a little bit. My take, which is completely speculation to be clear, it sounds crazy, but I think they want to actually test systems against the malware, like come up with a security patch, push out the patch, and have that eliminate the malware. Whereas if they had every person bring in their computer to the Apple Store, obviously that would create like a lot bigger support queue if this was indeed a widespread problem. This is one of those situations where the malware is installed by someone who downloads something from the internet that says you have a virus, and you click download, and you install it in your computer, and then all of a sudden you start getting porn pop-ups, essentially. I think that they're using this as maybe a test case for a feature patch or something like that, but it just seems so out of character for a company that, in iPad today, you were talking about, they will sometimes, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, replace an iPad that you personally shattered. It just seems out of character for Apple to just say, oh, well, not only we're not going to remove your malware, but like we're not even going to tell you it's on there for no reason. I think that they maybe have a reason, and we just don't know it yet. HP, Dell, all the other PC manufacturers, they remove malware. They have, I think Microsoft has like a number you can call to, report malware and to help get it removed. So it definitely is a departure from the normal take on this situation. But I hope that they actually have a plan.
On top of that, on this document also says that the people have to say, explain that Apple does not make recommendations for specific software in removing this. So they don't really have like a plan for you to follow when something goes wrong based on this.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, when I first switched to Mac, how do you remove an application? You're supposed to drag it to the trash bin.
Right.
But there's still stuff in your library folders and all kinds of things that if there's no uninstaller, you can't remove these things. So they don't have like a system for this just yet.
App Zapper, though, with that specific one, I'll just plug App Zapper.
App
That's
Zapper.
That's how I get rid of all of my preference files. So even though they don't have a solution, there are antivirus software in the Mac App Store even. So you can search for malware removal, I'm sure, and there's got to be at least one. So
yeah, Randall, I tend to agree with you that it doesn't sound like Apple to just be like, we don't know what to say, because Apple, I mean, they're known for having too much control over exactly how things will be carried out. My guess, and again, it's just a guess, is that, yeah, they probably they don't want to give too many customer service representatives any reason to get it wrong, to go off message even a little bit while they try to figure out how to push out this. Here's the solution. It's the one umbrella solution for everybody. You're all the same.
And that's part of the reason why they started the Mac App Store, right? they're supposed to have this very controlled experience, and you're supposed to be able to uninstall things just like you did on an iOS device. But one of these, a researcher actually found out that the Mac App Store isn't updating certain things like Opera. Now, Opera has had 2 versions since the latest one that's in the App Store. They've patched critical flaws since that version that's in the Mac App Store. So if you are actually still using Apple's solutions, you could possibly still be running risk of having a horrible browser experience. Not a horrible browser experience, but critical flaws in your browser. So I don't really know what they're going to be doing next.
A lot of it's scale, though. I think that, if this becomes a big problem, and like the iPhone 4 antenna, like, was that a big problem? Arguably, yes. Like, arguably, you could say that, holding it wrong, if I hold my phone like this, like it loses all signal, that just doesn't seem right. I mean, if this becomes a big deal, if a lot of computers get infected, more importantly, if regular, Channel 4 Eyewitness News starts talking about this, I think that Apple will formulate a more coherent response.
Right, but you installed it wrong. That'll be
But I think I expect Apple to at least come up with some sort of patch or something to try and fix this ahead of that. I hope they do, at least.
Yeah, Apple has a bit of a track record for just not saying much until there's enough fear, on Channel 4 Eyewitness News, for example, or the blogger saying, there's malware, it's a real... And then they go, all right, fine, let's get Steve out there to say, calm down, everybody, here's what we're doing. You're doing it wrong.
You're holding it wrong.
Here's how to do it right with your malware. All right, moving on to some good news for Amazon, or bad news, depending on whether you like tree books or digital books, because Kindle books have officially taken over print sales at Amazon. I know you might say, well, wait, didn't you guys talk about this before? Well, we did, but that only applied to hardcover books. We are now at the point where Kindle books are outselling all books as far
on
as
the Amazon.
On Amazon.
On Amazon.
So paperbacks
as far as
and
physical books go.
Right. I mean, this seems to just go to the message that Amazon really knows what they're doing with the Kindle, right? They have their application on every device, it seems like. You can get it for the Mac, for Windows. You can get it for the actual Kindle device. You can get it for your Android device, iOS. I mean, I don't know what it's not on at this point. I guess maybe not on TVs yet, for whatever reason. But I guess you don't want to read on your TV. But
someone does.
I bet.
Someone out there
I'd do it just to say, I read that book on my TV.
Yeah, it's probably
so
good.
Amazon's going to get on that too. But people like getting their books. I know I've read something before where Kindle users are more likely to buy books since they bought the Kindle. They're like 70% more likely to get another book.
Right.
Because it's just so easy to get them. They're like, it takes 60 seconds.
It's easier than buying a bookcase every 6 months because you're reading so many books and now you got to put them somewhere.
They got to put together the bookcase.
Right. And it's from IKEA and you know how hard
you lost
those
the hex
are.
key.
Exactly. I mean, Amazon.com launched in 1995, right?
They were a bookstore.
They were a bookstore. I mean, that's what they started with. They've obviously evolved into much more than that, but that's what Amazon started as. And the fact that they're now selling more Kindle books, I mean, which is their own creation, than print books, it's like, I mean, would anyone have an incentive to not publish a Kindle version of a book? I guess there are some independent publishers maybe who just aren't on this train yet, but it's the way to go.
Yeah, I know. I hate it when I'm looking at books and there's no Kindle edition available. It's like, oh, then this book doesn't exist to me.
Really?
I'm sorry.
That's how you feel?
I'm not going to go buy the book. That's crazy.
Seriously, I don't think I've bought a hardcover book in forever, or a softcover book. Like, I just buy Kindle books on occasion. I think that Amazon was really smart. I think when they started in 1995, they had the idea of ebooks, similar to how Netflix, when they started, their name is Netflix. Like, obviously, they saw that video would be delivered over the internet at some point. I think Amazon similarly knew this was coming, so they've been planning for it for years. And so, this is the inflection point. 2011 is the time where ebooks are taking off. Tablets have really enabled that, and I just think it's indicative of how smart Amazon is as a company.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, that doesn't mean you can't just loan your book. You can loan your books eventually, but you can't just give away your books or anything like that. Once you buy these ebooks, they're on that Kindle. So unless you're physically handing out your Kindle or giving people access to your Kindle account, it's not the same kind of sharing experience you could have based on old dead tree books. You'd be like,
although isn't Amazon introducing a bit of a buyback program? We talked about this briefly earlier in the week. I mean, I wonder if there could be some sort of I'm done with this book. I don't need this digital file anymore. It's almost like an Amazon library of sorts.
That'd be nice.
They have some of this out there, right? There is actually ways to lend books. The problem is, like, it's up to the publisher whether the book is lendable,
right?
Which means none of them are lendable. So it's similar to how they have text to speech on every Kindle book could have text to speech, but none of them do because the publishers like the audiobook rights. So, I mean, some of it is just that old publisher mentality of, oh, well, revenues, not like what they don't realize the marketing potential and things like that. So I think like I would love to get rid of some of the books that I don't read anymore and just give them to my friends who would read them. But,
yeah, it's not quite the same as, tossing somebody a book and then they just pack it in their backpack and go on their merry way. I know there's a Kindle sharing where I can loan you a book for 14 days or something like that, which is, I know, put the pressure on you to finish it before, it goes away kind of thing. But digital ebooks are here to stay, that's for sure. So it's pretty amazing that Amazon has actually outdone itself. Kindle books are replacing all physical books, at least in sales on Amazon.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, outing.
It's outing. Outselling.
Outsailing, not outing.
Outsailing is what I was going to say.
Something different.
There's no sailing involved.
All right, on to some interesting Google news. Eric Schmidt, you know Eric Schmidt. He's a great guy. He was talking at Google's Big Tent conference that was in London yesterday. And when broached on the topic of facial recognition software, which, people have been talking about Google, they know so much. I mean, they've got pictures of all of our homes and the streets, and they know our patterns. Facial recognition, that would be, something that Google would have a lot of interest in, a facial recognition database. Eric said it's unlikely that Google would build something like this, not because they couldn't. Schmidt says he's surprised by the accuracy of current facial recognition software and finds it very concerning.
Yeah, that's odd.
Which I find very concerning.
He's like the last guy who would say that, though.
I know.
He's the guy who's like, all your data should be on the internet. You should live in public. Like all this stuff. And he's the one who's saying facial recognition is creepy. I actually find facial recognition among the least creepiest things that Google does. Like they do a lot of things that they can track all my searches. They know what I'm thinking. They know what I'm thinking more than anyone else in the world. Like
right.
I just think that is way more creepy than, I was in a public place and they took a picture of my face. Like that to me is less concerning.
Yeah, but what's crazier is that there was a patent application that made its way public today. It's by Google, and it's entitled, quote, automatically mining person models of celebrities for visual search applications. And what it really covers is, get this, a computer-implemented method of automatic facial recognition. So this is a Google patent about facial recognition, and it would have a system comprising of a face image database, which Schmidt said they wouldn't do, but the patent team is doing it anyway, and a name database. So what it would do is they'd find a face and they'd match it with the name, but this is only limited to celebrities.
Well, okay. So, I mean, what? I don't really get why. Why would it be limited to celebrities? Because they're the only people where we're like, is it really her?
They're the only people that have chosen to take the direction of having their face be so publicly available.
Got it.
Versus,
and using like Botox, it's like their face is the same at all times for their entire life. So there's not any changes.
Very true.
True, because that could put a kink into the technology behind it. Like, not only do I have to recognize your face, but you just grew older by 20 years. Now I've got to figure out how you look now.
Good thing you can't move your eyebrows, so I can tell.
It is interesting that of all people, Eric Schmidt saying, hey, listen, I know how good facial recognition software is, and believe me, you don't want it.
It creeps
It is
the crap
scary
out of
stuff.
me.
Oh, and by the way,
Holy
we'll
cow.
patent it. Nobody told me that.
Right.
Now I don't know how you're going to deal. Like, how is he going to go into the office tomorrow? He's just going to be screaming his head off.
I mean, is this something that maybe Eric Schmidt was leading the effort of until recently? I mean, obviously Google has had some reorgs as of late. I mean, is this just something that he may have said because he's not running the show?
Or conspiracy theory.
It's a huge company. I mean, there's like 20-something thousand employees.
Right.
The patent arm, I'm sure, is like 15 nerds in a room who invent things so they can be protected against other companies who come out with them with patents. Like, to me, I don't know. I mean, a lot of companies patent stuff and then never use it. I don't know why they patented it. If Eric Schmidt says it's creepy, I don't think Google can do it until Eric Schmidt leaves. Like, I don't think they're allowed to even
Larry will say,
broach the
stop.
topic.
He'll sit Eric down in a corner, and Larry Page will have a nice discussion with him, saying, "We're going to be doing this.
So
It's social."
we're doing this now. Yeah.
Well, in any case, sounds like a very scary time to be a celebrity. Thank goodness none of us are.
That's good.
And now let's do, is it not our first or our second?
It's second.
It's
By
our
the numbers.
second edition of By the Numbers.
Oh, a bumper. Amazing.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
Isn't that good? Yeah, I set that one up like butter,
Like
too.
gangbusters.
What is number two? Second time? All right, let's run it.
It was about numbers. You're talking about numbers. It's good. I like that. We're going to talk about Gartner's study. We talk about this a lot. Here we go. Gartner said in a report released today that over 100 million smartphones were sold worldwide during the first quarter of 2011. It found that Android made up 36% of sales of that, so that's 36 million Android phones. Symbian, 27.4%, which is down from, I want to say something over 44.2% last year at the same time.
Wow.
iOS is 16.8%, RIM 12.9%, Microsoft at 3.6%, with only 1.6 million Windows Phone 7 units sold.
Which is weird, at least for the Windows 7 portion of these numbers, is that compared to first quarter of 2010, it's down from 6.8% to 3.6%.
Well, it might have been counting older Windows Mobile phones, and a lot of those, of course, are not in use. And the crazy thing to me is that Symbian number, that's insane. Like, that is crazy to me. Like, Nokia, obviously banking on Symbian, no wonder they made that deal with Microsoft. You know, like, that's a 20% drop. That's insane to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. iOS is up just, a percentage point. RIM is down. I don't want to bag on RIM because I'm always pointing out that they just keep falling. Android is way, way up. That's the duh part of all of this, where I always say, duh, Android is up.
Every manufacturer
You now
makes
have
the phone.
450 Android phones to choose from.
So maybe they're making up a part of the market share. Maybe.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Crazy theories.
Yeah.
Symbian. That's that is quite a drop.
I think that's
And
why the
Randall, you're
Symbian-
right. I guess Windows Phone 7. I mean, when was Windows Phone 7 released?
It's like less than a year old.
Yeah. So I mean, whatever was in the first quarter of last year.
They
I
don't
mean,
have a
we're
whole-
not even talking about Windows Phone.
They don't
7
have a whole lot
phones.
of actual handsets out there. Like T-Mobile's got one.
Yeah.
Sprint's got
AT&T
two.
is-
Verizon just got their first.
Oh, no, they're going to on the 26th.
They're going to, right.
So they still don't have one.
Still don't.
Yeah, the HTC Trophy will be Verizon's entry into Windows Phone 7 territory.
Hooray.
They're on AT&T, T-Mobile. They're on Sprint. But yeah, I mean, it's nowhere near the Android market.
It's a cool
Yeah.
OS. It'll catch on once they buy Nokia.
Do you think Windows Phone 7 is gonna really spread far and wide?
Maybe.
Internationally, I think it has a shot with that deal with Nokia. I mean, Nokia's always been big overseas, and they've never cared about the U.S., and now they're paying for it. Like, they've got a shot with Windows Phone 7 to have a modern OS that I think all of those Symbian handsets are just going straight to Android. So anyone who leaves Symbian is just going to like the cheapest Android handset available probably in, some other country. So you figure like those, that to me is Nokia's ace in the hole, is having brand recognition overseas more than they do in the US.
I really do think that Windows Phone 7 is something else. I mean, it doesn't look like Android. It doesn't look like iOS. They completely have made up for Windows Mobile 6.5.
Being awful.
Right.
Windows Mobile, all of them were awful.
Well, the thing is, I hadn't used Windows Mobile since 2002, and then I tried 6.5, and it was exactly the same.
Exactly.
And I was just like, well, there's a couple of changes, but it was like Pocket PC all over again. It was just, I couldn't believe that no progress had been done. But Microsoft really went out of their way to make this thing look different. That tile system is interesting.
Yeah.
I think they do have something different to actually offer the market.
Well, and I think they have an approach, right? Like, Apple kind of has this specific approach that you could feel, and like it felt really well thought through. Android, for better or worse, felt a lot like iOS to me. Windows Phone 7 doesn't at all. Windows Phone 7 feels completely different, and I think that's why Microsoft has a shot. That completely different idea, that's where they should go.
And I think that's a great point, and I think they had to. I mean, Android folks and iOS folks want to fight with each other over which version of a similar experience, not the same experience, but in many ways a similar experience is better. You've got we're open on this side or we're prettier on the other side and that kind of thing. And Windows, Microsoft is over in left field saying, how about something new and different? We don't even want to be part of this argument. We just want to, maybe you just like our interface better, the experience better. All right, with that, we will move on to the news fuse. Yesterday, we were telling you how Intel was spouting off at the mouth, saying Microsoft Windows 8 will be available in lots of different editions, but the version for ARM processors aren't going to support legacy apps, so we're better. Microsoft isn't really very happy about that and actually issued a statement that says Intel's statements during the Intel investor meeting about Microsoft's plans for the next version of Windows were factually inaccurate and unfortunately misleading. Intel said a lot of things about Windows 8, so we're not sure exactly what is misleading about what they said, but hopefully Microsoft will tell us more soon.
Microsoft's kind of ticked there.
Yeah.
A UK blogger is warning people that old expired domains connected to Google Apps could lead to all kinds of security problems. On his blog, Ben Reyes says that old expired domains with Google Apps that are picked up by new owners will still have all your data, emails, calendar information all attached to the domain. Considering Google requires proof of URL ownership to establish control of Google Apps, any old information left in Google Apps should be accessible to a new URL owner. So, of course, that means the lesson here is the sky is falling.
Or just don't leave
Delete your stuff, man.
expired
Delete your
domains.
Don't let your domains expire.
If you do that, the world will end, and everyone will read your email.
Apparently, Microsoft likes giving away Xboxes via a new promotion. If you buy a Windows 7 PC worth $699 or higher, you'll get an Xbox 360 arcade system for free. No rebates are even necessary. You'll either need a .edu email address or an online purchase from a student ID. And you can pick it up at Microsoft as well as Best Buy. The promo runs from May 22nd until September 3rd in the US first, and France and Canada will join the fun later.
The not your opinion, although they do have opinions. The European Union issued a non-binding opinion that says user location data is private. That's what it is. The EU also called for users of devices like smartphones to be given clear, comprehensive, and understandable information about how long location data is processed. Even though the opinion is non-binding, it could potentially lead to sanctions. So, Apple and Google, watch it. Watch yourself. Watch your back.
It's an exciting day today. You know why it's exciting?
Why?
Because the Linux kernel has been updated. That's right. What are you laughing about? It's version 2.6.39, which brings lots of drivers. We're talking about hundreds here, hundreds of drivers, which means Linux will be able to run on even more hardware. There's support for things like AMD's Cayman graphics cards, Broadcom chips, NVIDIA GPUs, and plenty more.
I'm laughing because I'm drunk with power. All the power that I'll have with this Linux update.
Run a lot of things.
Nice. Master Objects is suing Microsoft over a patent related to instant search. If you're unfamiliar with instant search, it's when you get results as you type in the search box. Master Objects has already sued both Amazon and Google over the same patent.
In semi-paradoxical news, a very public face and pseudo-spokesman of Anonymous, the group, has left the group.
The spokesman for the group.
Barrett Brown has made many appearances on TV, speaking on behalf of the very anonymous group, but he's quitting Anonymous because of the lack of quality control. He was more interested in the group when it was, assisting North African revolutions, say, but less interested in things like Opsoni.
That's odd. Anonymous spokesperson. Got
Anonymous, a spokesperson for Anonymous, who is not anonymous, is quitting Anonymous. That was the TSA
Anonymously.
version. Yeah.
Rockstar's received reports, can't talk today. Rockstar's received reports from some PS3s are overheating while playing LA Noire. Apparently, older 60 gigabyte and 80 gigabyte PS3 models are suffering the most. They're beeping and turning themselves off when you're trying to play the game. So what caused this? Rockstar and Sony's official joint statement, quote, "At this time, Rockstar Games and Sony can confirm that neither LA Noire or firmware update 3.6.1 are causing the PS3 hardware to overheat," which probably means it's probably the
Sucks
firmware.
to be you, is what it really means.
It's just because it's such a hot game, Wow,
snap.
it's
Do we
heating
have a
up
sad
the
trombone for that?
marketplace.
So hot right now.
It's really hot in LA. Actually, everyone seems to really like the game so far, so hopefully they'll get that fixed pretty soon. And finally, Iyaz, you want to take this one? Because I don't know what is going on.
Let's
with
run the video.
superheroes.
We've got a kicker,
I'm
and
so excited about
this is the
this.
remote-controlled superhero. Now, this is effectively just pretty much a remote-controlled airplane in the shape of a human being, okay? So what you're seeing is an RC man flying. Now, what's odd about this is that it's not an Iron Man.
What isn't odd about this?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how does it not have
RC person?
How is it not
It's crazy.
merchandised with either Iron Man or Green Lantern or Superman on it? It's just a random flying person.
This looks like a helium balloon, that like actually isn't tied and you just let go.
Well,
and it's like
they showed this thing take off pretty well. They got some good control over this. It looks amazing. You're gonna see some really confused people.
I love.
So
Can you imagine? He's just like, let's just fly him over Petaluma and just see what happens.
$300. It's like dirt cheap.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So we can have a whole army of them.
That's going to be the next marketing thing. You know it. Like, even past movies, there's just going to be like a flying guy for the Milk Association or something. And we'll have like random people.
This is
just
the
like,
new airplane banner.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
Do,
the
like,
super-
You're gonna be out on the beach enjoying a suntan. You open your eyes and you'll see some
another
Michelin
one of those,
man.
Those superheroes, they're
yeah.
so
Michelin Man, that's a
They
good
can fly in a formation. That's what they'll do. It'll be a giant flying logo.
Yeah.
He's got purple socks on. Have we not talked about
I
that
think
yet?
actually those are
I did
lights.
those.
There's a lights at
Yeah.
the bottom of the feet, so you can actually see what's going on there.
That's just
Oh,
good.
I
That's
dig
just
that.
good stuff. I don't know what to make of it, but it's cool.
Well,
That's
yeah.
for sure.
So we go to the calendar.
Yes, let's move on to the calendar, shall we? You'll love this first one. Playboy's archives are hitting the iPad today, so you can look at old Playboy articles, and then you'll say, "But I only do that because the articles are so good." I know your game. They'll cost you $8 a month, but if you're into the Playboy archive now, it's available for iPad. Xbox 360's spring dashboard update goes live today. This one will give you, consoles the ability to read higher capacity discs and provide support for PayPal to buy points and subscriptions, so that's handy. Virgin Mobile is offering a new broadband plan in the U.S. For $20, you'll get 500 megabytes, which is good for 30 days. It's the Rapture on Saturday, actually. So this is, of course, that's the end.
Okay.
We've got a couple days. Liquid Friday, thankfully.
Is before
we
the
get that
Rapture.
in before the
Thankfully.
end. But that's on Saturday, so prepare to go to heaven. I know we all will. If for any reason you don't go to heaven and you're still around on Sunday, it'd be a good day for brunch. Or maybe if you're in the upstate New York area, Ithaca College's commencement is
That's an
on
idea.
Sunday.
Right after the Rapture, go to college.
Yeah, so you could just swing by there. And then if you're still alive on May 24th, the PlayStation Store will return to PSN. So, I mean, if for any
What's
reason...
more likely to happen?
We
The
should have-
Rapture, or
It
the
will
PlayStation
return.
Store?
We should have
When-
known when
oh.
PSN went down that this was the beginning of the end.
It's great. I'm actually...
It was foretold, wasn't it?
A part of me is like, why do we... It's just, I don't know. For anybody who thinks that Saturday is the last day, it was super fun knowing you, and we'll just have to see, I guess.
I'll save it
right?
all for Sunday.
Yeah. Finally, let's move on to emails.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of suggestions for our segment after the news fuse, and one of the most popular ones has been, and now for something completely different, which is obviously based on Monty Python. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Does that seem like us? And now for something completely different?
It's not usually completely different.
Yeah, it's sort of
It's not like
really.
we start talking
Now
about
for something
cakes.
marginally different.
Now for a flying
Tertiarily
superhero
related.
with purple
Something
socks.
Tangentially related.
Right. Dynamite. What was it?
Dino Light.
Dino Light. Yeah. Well, thank you for all the suggestions. They're just getting weirder. Next email from Lindsay says, "Hi guys, love the show. Listening right now to the talk about the Hulu for magazines on Android. You were speculating why it was only available through the Vcast Android market. The reason is very likely because Vcast supports auto-renew subscription billing, and Android market does not have any type of subscription billing support, at least not yet." Randall, what do you think? Do you think, Lindsay, it's just a matter of rolling out, and this is the first place that it has?
Most likely. I mean, VCast, that would be the one case where someone actually uses VCast, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's just a nightmare of a service. But, I guess if it fills one little hole so that people can, use the magazines on Android, go for it.
Finally, before we wrap up this wonderful Thursday edition of TNT, we want to remind you that we're doing a fundraiser for the new TWiT studio. We've talked about it a lot. It's this really cool place right down the street. We're in the middle of building it right now. If you go to bricks.twit.tv, you have the opportunity to help our cause and to buy yourself a brick where it's an official TWiT brick.
Yeah, you can have
because-
your message engraved there. It'll be there when people
Yeah.
show up to the reception area. They'll be like, "Hey, look at that! That's my brick."
Yeah, you just
and you
want
help to build
add your
the TWiT
name
studios,
or a special message
or even a logo.
or a logo or some sort of a weird URL to promote. I mean, anything you want, really. We just we'd love your support, and that's the way that we figured out would be a really fun way for you guys to support us and feel like you actually have. You actually helped us build brick by brick and be able to have your name. That URL again is bricks.twit.tv. Randall Bennett, thanks so much for joining us again. Tell everybody about your new project on the horizon.
Yeah, so VidPresso, it's launching on Monday. I hesitate to say that because there's still so much work, but it's a way of syncing videos with slides. So if you do a presentation, you can actually sync the slides to the video and you don't have to, shoot the screen or try anything crazy like that. If you want to try it, I have a secret for TNT viewers.
Oh, nice.
Vidpresso.com/TNT. that gets you on the super velvet rope access list. So we'll hook you up, and we'll launch in private beta on Monday. So yeah, hopefully you guys can check it out and give me feedback, because it's really rough right now. So help me out.
Well, it sounds awesome. TNT viewers and listeners, you know what to do. Go to vidpresso.com/TNT and help Randall work it out. Sounds like an awesome service. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to all of you for being here. If you want to call into the show, 260-TNT shows the number, and write us an email at tnt@twit.tv. See you guys tomorrow for Liquid Friday.
Oh, yeah.
And Iyaz is drinking.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. That's the announcement.
I've kind of gone into like this weird Frankenstein dance.
You okay over
It's
there?
like,
Yeah, you need to do this.
I think what you were doing was more like the.